It's wonderful to be back, and I'm happy to be back again. So let's get today's topic started. I wanted to talk with you all about something that's near and dear to my heart. Let me share my power screen with you. And I think I was just on this page. Let me make sure that I'm on the right page first to get there. Give me 1 second. Here we go. So this is an area that's near and dear to my heart, as I mentioned, because basically for my adult life, I have lived through this. Can you all see my PowerPoint? Okay, yes. All right, so we have been in a place this day and age that our workforce is so diverse. Just look at us virtually. Look at us. The places we've been and the kind of experiences we bring to this table, we bring to today's symposium, and the work and experience and talents that you are contributing to your teams, to your projects, right? To the projects that you manage. And we are so diverse. We come from many parts of the world, many corners of the planet, and we would bring a wealth of information. And so this is something that I would love to share with all people, not just today, but I've been sharing this topic with many, many people in the federal space and other places. Let's get started. My name is Dottie Lee. I'm founder and CEO of Trans-Pacific Communications. And I will talk with you briefly about what Trans-Pacific Communications does. And then we'll go straight to today's topic, power networking across cultures. Now, this is our logo. We have one thing that we are passionate about at Trans-Pacific Communications, which is breaking down diversity and communication barriers between you and your teams, between you and your goals, okay? So that translates into several of the things we do. Quickly, we do a lot of training. Today, you're getting this power networking across cultures training, one of my all-time favorite subjects. And we also have effective communication for non-native or multicultural professionals. That was a subject that I spoke with you all just a few years ago, and how to deliver a winning presentation. I understand you just heard a fantastic presentation training. We do that as well. As a matter of fact, we have several of that at another federal agency in recent months, actually going on for 1 year. It's a whole year program. And certainly writing skills and other type of things. And in light of President Biden's newest executive order on DEIA, which stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. We do a lot of those DEIA work, assessment, and training. So if you have any interest, just let me know in the future. But let's go straight to today's topic, power networking across cultures. First, we have to talk about the definition of networking. Everyone's definition is different. Some people think networking is simply passing out your business card, whether it's in a virtual setting like this or in a real conference before the pandemic, that you meet someone, you give them your business card. No, that's not yet. But we're also going to work with you on some of the useful networking techniques, be it virtually or eventually when we go back to be in person. And the art of a handshake. Well, now you can't shake hands much. Hopefully not. But what's the online presence that you project when you're here either talking or presenting? And we're going to discuss some of the most common networking turnoffs and challenges around us, and certainly how to use your body language to help get your message across. And of course, how to create that positive last impression with your introductions. Right? Networking starts with introductions. And of course, introduction is a way of communication. And that's another thing we do, and we do well at Trans-Pacific Communications. Well, speaking of communications and introductions, what is the most important thing you want to communicate to people? What is that one thing, that one message that you wish to tell people about? Is that your work? Is that your projects? Is your hobby? What is it? Your kids, your pets, what have you? So what is the most important thing you want to tell people? Once you figure out the most important thing to tell people, to communicate people, but how to communicate that to people? That's an art versus science. I understand lots of you folks today are scientists, but this is more an art form. And lastly, have you practiced your introduction? You know yourself better than most people, than any other people. And have you practiced your introductions? Because you have different versions of your introduction. Sometimes it's one aspect of yourself that you want to introduce to one crowd, and maybe it's something else. You could be a runner, but you could be a gardener. So when you introduce yourself as a runner, I bet that introduction is very different from when you are a gardener or reader, for that matter, or a scientist, right? Well, now let me go back to the definition. First, what is communication? I'm just going to answer it for you, but feel free to put it into the chat box. I wanted to see if your definition of communication is pretty much the same that's established or not. So feel free to send in your definition. Well, we often have talked about communication is a two-way street. There is the communicator, right now it's me, and the receiver. So you have to make sure that your, I see your answer, so thank you. So you want to make sure your message gets to the audience or the receiver the way you intend it to be, right? So if you didn't do a good job getting that message across, then you're on the hook. It's up to you to make sure that message gets delivered the way you intend it to be. So you need to produce that desired results. If they don't get your message, well, something's wrong with your message or with the way you deliver that message. And then interpersonal communication is that process of communication between two people. I often hear from folks saying that they do better with one-on-one, they do better in a smaller group, they don't do as well in a larger group, whether it's giving a presentation or giving a talk. Well, there might be a challenge because there are times you have to stand in front of a larger crowd. Right now we have 400 some people, but one day you might be talking with 4,000 some people, right? And it's the same thing. The principle is the same. You have to have the desire, and then you need to understand the process of getting that message across, the successful communication. And then eventually you have to master that basic skill. Well, once you master it, you got to practice a little bit more to be even better when you first start. All right, so patience. Maybe the first few times things don't go as well, but it takes practice, it takes patience to get there, to be successful. All right, now I'm going to show you this classic box called the Betari Box. Your behavior up here, my behavior, will impact your attitude, but in turn, your attitude will change my behavior, and then my behavior will impact your attitude. So it's the cycle that continues. So I guess you have to start with your behavior. If I don't behave well, or if I don't have a positive attitude, if I show you something that's not quite kosher, that's not nice, it could be borderline nasty and what have you, that's definitely going to impact your attitude. That will come back to change your behavior toward me, and then that will again impact my attitude. So it's almost like a vicious cycle, if you will, right? So that's a classic Betari box. Now, take a look at this slide. It's a cartoon, so I'm going to stop for a second, just let you digest. Are they talking? They're talking all right, but are they communicating? Not really, right? These two are on complete different paths. One goes like this, one goes like that, right? The question from the boss, from the person on the left, clearly wasn't answered because Communicating. Yeah, clearly that message didn't get across to the person who thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were coming, boss. Now, there are a few principles that we have to keep in mind when we communicate. First of all, we've got to understand what takes place between people when we exchange ideas or just to convey information. And you have to know what kind of people are involved in the communication. Sometimes you may manage a group of folks who are all type A's, or people who are a little bit less aggressive. And you have to understand when you approach that individual, what kind of tone, what kind of approach to take. And of course, the other most important thing that has everything to do with today's topic is the cultural background of the individual, right? You need to be keeping that in mind at all times. That person's, those individuals bring this type of cultural background. I need to be sensitive to that. I need to address that person's individual cultural background. And of course, at all times, communicate non-defensively. That's going to take you a long way whenever you practice that. Here's this pie slide that I'm going to share with you. About 15% of the U.S. workforce, labor force, is foreign-born, and certainly I'm one of the folks here in this little slice of pizza, non-native, and I suspect there are quite a few of us here today at this symposium as well. This is the trend of foreign-born workforce coming to the U.S., and this is already outdated, but since 1996, people just keep coming to the U.S., and because we attract the best and brightest to come to the U.S. Speaking of foreign-born workforce, this is an interesting chart. The foreign-born workforce had a slight higher share of this work age, which is from 25 to 54 years, which I deem that to be prime work time. And actually, it's higher than the native-born workforce right here, as you can see. So there are quite a few of us in the workforce during this period, the prime work time. Breaking it down even further, remember that 15% of foreign-born workforce, this is the pie on this side, on the left side. So that's the 15% of foreign-born. Almost 50% of those are Hispanic at the bottom. And the other 85% is predominantly white, not Hispanic right here. This is a snapshot I literally took shortly after New Year's in 2015, a Washington Post magazine that talked about the non-natives in our area. So I thought you might be interested, given that this is Montgomery County, so easily between Montgomery County and Fairfax County, those two counties have the highest share of non-natives. And guess what? Montgomery County tops the nation's capital region at 32.2% non-natives. The second one is, of course, Fairfax County, 29.5%. A very important concept I would love to introduce to you guys is called acculturation. Acculturation is a process of adapting to a new culture. Could be that you came from Mars, Mexico for that matter. Now you're here in the US, or vice versa. Now that they are doing space traveling or space tourism, you just never know. Or you are a former military, now you're a civilian, or vice versa. Or you came from a small town, now you ended up in the nation's capital metropolitan area, or vice versa, wherever you travel to. Or you're from another federal agency, now you're with a different agency. So wherever you're coming from, we all go through this process of adapting to a new culture. Now, this adaptation requires a whole new way of thinking, feeling, and communicating. Think about those three things. You got to change the way you feel, you got to change the way you think, and you got to change the way you communicate. And that's where we come in the picture to support you and help you. What's the process? Quickly, it's a 4-stage process. Number 1, stage 1 is called euphoria, as in you are so excited coming to a new country, coming to a new agency, or coming to a new planet.